I'd like to welcome Queen Victoria Ortega, International President of Flux and Chief Visionary Officer at the Connie Norman Transgender Empowerment Center, Gris Paloma Iris, International Media Director at Flux and Media Director for the Connie Norman Transgender Empowerment Center, and Juliana Joel, actress, host of the Q Agenda and Out 100 honoree. A big thank you to each of you for joining me here today. Now, first up, what's been going on at the Connie Norman Transgender Empowerment Center? I've heard you've been having power lunches, self-defense classes.
Yeah, so thank you again for having us. At the Connie Norman Trans Empowerment Center is just that. It's hard for people to wrap their head around. We are really focused on empowering the community and looking at skills. And one of the things that we really are focused on, and in partnership with Warner Brothers Discovery, we had a media power brunch just on November 12th to kick off Trans Awareness Week. For those who are watching that don't know, it is Transgender Awareness Month, super important month. And a lot of events are happening, but one of the things that we wanted to focus on is the power of storytelling and the power of us telling our own stories as trans people. Part of that included us discussing people above the line, writers, producers, directors, and people below the line, people who are gripping, electricians, DITs. So it was super important to be able to bring that to our community so they know how to interface and be part of, because we are already part of the entertainment industry. So it was a great master class, I would say, as well as just raising the possibility of really dreaming of how we could continue down the path of advancement for our community. So that is what's been going on, is we've been empowering our people.
Yeah, and so why organize the Media Power Brunch, and what was the purpose behind it?
So one of the main reasons to organize it was to make sure, again, that we're shifting the ability to change the narrative and to tell the narrative to come for us and by us. So that's one of the things that was used a lot in especially disability communities, was nothing for us without us. And so we wanted to make sure that, again, we center the voices and the authentic storytelling coming from community itself, because there's such a wealth of knowledge. And I always say trans stories resonate and are viable and are sellable, because they're human stories, right? We all have the story of struggle, but we also have the story of triumph, right? And those are things that I think are inspirational, and why I'm in love with my community, and why it was so important to be able to do that. We even have a studio. We have Flex Studios embedded into the Trans Empowerment Center. It was on purpose that we identified a space to be able to do that.
Well, it's very important. And Juliana, why is it so important to have these trans stories, and how do you think it will affect people outside the trans community?
I mean, it all comes down to representation. And I know we say this all the time, representation matters. And it is because it really does. And especially for a community like the trans community, the reality is that, most people in this country have never met a trans person, let alone knows one personally. So how many of society, how much of society forms their opinions about a community of people they don't know is through media, through what they see on TV. And for years, that representation has either been completely absent or not great representation. We've seen the stories of trans people just being shown as just painted in very negative light, and not ever given chances to show our humanity, to show that we are deserving of love and success, and the comedic storylines and the love stories. So it's important because it's how people form their opinion about us. And when you're also living in a world and in a society where you have lawmakers trying to strip away basic human rights from the community, people need to know that we are deserving of living, of of succeeding, of having families, of just being human and living a human experience. So again, I know we say it all the time, representation matters, and it really does, because people need to see us.
Because, yeah, we're all humans, and it humanizes you, because for such a long time, you're right, representation growing up, and the things I saw on TV are not my trans friends. It's almost like a clown version, and I'm so glad that I'm seeing these true stories where you get to fall in love, have families. I mean, we're definitely going the right direction. But there's been such a pushback lately in legislation. Is there a safe place to be trans, do you feel?
Is there a safe place to be trans?
I mean, across the country at the moment, there's been such a pushback against the trans community and the LGBT community with legislation. You know, the safe spaces. I mean, you know, where do you feel safe?
I mean, obviously, places like the Connie Norman Transgender Empowerment Center is a huge safe space for our community, and we need more places like that around the world. But altogether, you know, this is not a very safe time or place for us in general as a country for our community, which is why representation matters, which is why it's so important that people understand that also words matter. You know, when people like Lauren Boebert get onto their Twitter and spew all of this, just elevate this anti-LGBT hate rhetoric, that influences people to treat us a certain way and to cause us harm, and then creates the space we're in. So words matter, representation matters, because we need to get to a place of being able to walk out of our doors without worrying about our safety just because of who we are.
And so, you know, in your own words, social media, all these things, you know, rhetoric against the LGBTQ and trans community, these people need to be held responsible. How are we going to do that across social media and all these platforms? It needs to be done. Like, they should be held responsible, don't you think?
They should, but they never are.
No.
It's part of living in a country where, you know, we have freedom of speech. But freedom of speech, in my eyes, does not mean freedom of consequence for that speech. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know the solution as to how you hold people accountable. I would imagine a big component of that would be people who are not a part of the community speaking up.
It's down to the allies.
We need the allies to
We
do
need the allies.
at least half of the work that we're doing for ourselves.
That's true. And Paloma, just coming to you, could you tell me a little bit about your story and how the Connie Norman Center helped you?
Yes, I found the Connie Norman Center as an effect of finding Flux. I originally came to a chapter meeting for the organization that is Flux, a division of AIDS Healthcare Foundation dedicated to the trans and non-binary community. It was after attending the first Flux event that I was aware of on Halloween of last year. So it's been a full year. And since coming to the chapter meetings, involving myself more with the organizers and the board members, and eventually becoming a board member myself as the media director for Flux, I was able to earn the position of working here as the media director. Queen Victoria extended that position, that role to myself, and working here, having the consistency of working in the studio that Queen Victoria mentioned earlier, has provided me a wealth of networks. Like, being able to see trans and non-binary people on a daily basis has really changed my own understanding of the community in a way that I wasn't previously aware of. I am so grateful for the Connie
But
Norman Empowerment
it
Center.
sounds like a success story, and the reason someone like you deserve these chances. So, you know, congratulations all around. There's a success story right there. And before we go, if you had to give a message to anyone out there still struggling to find representation or visibility, what would you say to them?
I would say that if you are struggling to find it, be it. We live in a wonderful age where we have access to social media. Like Juliana was mentioning, holding people accountable is sort of an anomalous question. How do we do that? Like, social media can be a double-edged sword, but at the same time, we have the ability to be the representation that we want to see. If we don't see a story portrayed or shown online on TV and movies, we have that capability now in 2022 to post our own stories, our own selves, and be that representation. So that's what I would say.
I mean, I've got pride within me. I'm so proud that you guys are doing what you do. I'd like to say a big thank you to all of you for joining me today.